Welcome to the Sinner's Chronicles.
When you think of horror movie villains, Valak from the Conjuring universe probably comes to mind, and the creepy, demonic nun probably sends chills down your spine. Known for its sinister grin and terrifying antics in The Conjuring 2 and The Nun, Valak has become a staple in modern horror. But is this spine chilling demon actually real? Is it inspired by historical lore, loosely based on another demon, or entirely a Hollywood invention? Let's dive into the truth behind Valak and compare its origins to its on screen counterpart. If you are not already familiar with this demon, you should know that its first appearance was in the 2013 horror movie, The Conjuring. It wasn't a major character in this movie, only appearing in a flashback. But in the next movie, The Conjuring 2, it made more of an appearance. Then it eventually got its own movie called The Nun in 2018. Aside from the Conjuring universe, Valak has also featured in a movie called Annabelle Creation, so it's not out of place to say that Valak is something of a horror movie staple at this point. One of the tactics that horror movie producers use to make their movies even scarier is claiming that the movie is based, however loosely, on real life events. So, horror movie watchers have learned to take that notification with a grain of salt. However, with The Nun, there might be some truth to it. Valak, the terrifying demon that appeared in the form of a nun, is based on a real demon. Kind of. So, Valak, sometimes spelled Valak, Walak, or even Valu, exists in historical demonology. The first appearance of this demon was in a 17th century grimoire, which is basically a manual on demons and spells, called the Key of Solomon or Clavicula Salomonis Regis if you want to be fancy. The book is a compendium of the names demons and their abilities, and is supposed to help the reader to command and, where necessary, exercise them. If you're wondering whether the Solomon of the Key of Solomon is the same Solomon you know, it might be if you are referring to the biblical character. It should be mentioned that neither the Bible nor any other theological document that features King Solomon mention or refer to this book on demonology. But some mythologists seem to think that King Solomon wrote the book. They like to point to the fact that the Solomon of biblical fame was the wisest in all the land. So it makes sense that his wisdom stretched to things outside of the physical realm. And considering that he is said to have written a number of books in the Bible, they believe he could have written this one as well. Or at the very least, someone wrote it based on Solomon's knowledge. What's more, while the church has banned the book, pronouncing it both non religious and heretical, some Catholic priests still have it in their possession. So, it really does make you wonder whether there is some truth to the claims. However, let's not forget that this book first surfaced in the 17th century. It could have been written earlier than that, of course, but Solomon existed many years BC. So, do with that information what you will. Now back to Valak. This demon is the 62nd of 73 demons listed in the book, and according to the book, Valak appeareth like a child with angel wings, riding on a two-headed dragon. Not a nun at all. What's more, Valak's special power is supposed to give true answers of hidden treasures and to tell where serpents may be seen. And even though he primarily appears as a child, he is in charge of 38 legions of spirits. To add to all of that, mythology refers to Valak as a president mighty and great, or the great president of hell. This name is, of course, in reference to the army of demons that he controls. That's a lot of power and authority for one demon, probably more power and authority than Hollywood portrays. It should be mentioned, though, that the myth claims that Valak was able to take on different forms, depending on the task at hand. Apparently, the name Valak is a derivative of the Latin word valx, which means deceitful. The demon has the ability to take on any form, even though its primary form seemed to be that of a boy. Now, compared to the terrifying nun we see in the movies, the original Valak is more fantastical and even whimsical. There's no mention of nuns or the kind of connection to Christianity that we see in the movies. So, how exactly did that come about? Was the nun thing just the producers exercising their creative liberty? Well, not exactly. Valak appearing as a nun was thanks to a real life story. Kind of. If you've ever seen The Conjuring 2, you know that it's about a character named Lorraine Warren that encounters a demon but manages to banish it to hell by using its own name, Valak, against it. And in The Nun, a demon terrorizes a Romanian monastery, and this demon is dressed as a Catholic nun. Well, both these storylines are based on the life of one Lorraine Warren who worked as a paranormal investigator and claimed to have encountered a presence in a church. Lorraine, alongside her husband Ed, became popular after they investigated the Amityville haunting that happened in 1976. The Amityville haunting is based on the horrific story of a man who killed his entire family back in 1974 and then blamed it on the demonic voices talking to him. 1 year later, a new family moved into that house, even knowing what had happened there, because they could just not pass up the price. It was that good. However, just 28 days later, they fled the house claiming that it was haunted. So, this was the case that Lorraine and Ed investigated. Apparently, the couple just so happened to have the right skills to investigate cases like this. Lorraine is conveniently a medium and a clairvoyant, while the husband is a demonologist. So, they had a lot of things to say about what happened, including confirming that the house was haunted. And even though the story of the house being haunted was later reported as a hoax, Lorraine and Ed had already been catapulted into some level of fame. Where exactly does the nun come in, though? Well, sometime in the 1970s, the couple took a trip to the haunted Borley Church. The lore says that the church is haunted by the ghost of a nun who had been buried alive in the brick walls of the convent centuries ago, and apparently, she was buried alive for having an affair with a monk. Well, according to the couple's son in law, the couple had encountered this ghost, and it kind of added to their credibility as ghost hunters among people that care about that stuff. So, what all of this could mean is that Hollywood decided to combine information from the lesser key of Solomon and the Warrens' supposed life experiences to create the Valak that we see in the Conjuring series. Now, to go into the specifics, James Wan, the director of The Conjuring 2, has in fact talked about how he came about the idea for Valak. According to him, he had a solid idea of what the movie was going to be about, how it was going to end, things like that. But for the longest, he couldn't settle on what he wanted the demon character to look like. He knew that he wanted it to be scary, of course, and had an idea of how it would torment people and stuff, but he continued to struggle with the demon's appearance until the idea came to him in post production. How? Well, here's what Juan said in an interview with Germain Lucier from Gizmodo. From talking to the real Lorraine in passing, she mentioned a spectral entity that has haunted her in her house, and it's a swirling tornado vortex with this hooded figure in there. And I remember hearing that, and my first thought was, oh crap, that's going to be a CGI character. I didn't want to do that. And so it kind of took me a while to cement in my head what this vision was. And it came across eventually in a very organic way. Because it is a demonic vision that haunts her, that only attacks her. I wanted something that would attack her faith, something that would threaten the safety of her husband. And so that was eventually how the idea of this very iconographic image of a holy icon cemented in my head. That, people, is how the Hollywood Valak was born, and why it doesn't really look like the Valak from the Key of Solomon. Now, what does Hollywood's Valak look like? First off, The Conjuring's Valak takes on the guise of a pale, ghostly nun with glowing eyes and a sinister presence. It serves as a central antagonist, terrorizing characters like Lorraine and Ed Warren. As far as powers go, The Conjuring's Valak is able to possess people, manipulate reality, and wreak havoc with its immense supernatural strength. The demon is also quite intelligent, knowing what shape and form to take in order to wreak the most effective havoc. It knows that appearing as a nun would make it easier for it to blend into the abbey and rock Lorraine's entire life. It also knew how to evade notice by making it seem like Bill Whitkin's possessed Janet instead of Valak itself. As for backstory, in The Nun, we see Valak explained as an ancient demon that was accidentally unleashed during the Middle Ages. The story goes that centuries ago, a duke in Romania had become obsessed with dark magic and Satanism. He was killed before he could successfully summon a demon. But years later, the monastery where he was trying was bombed, leading to the unleashing of Valak. Valak decided to take the form of a nun, not only as a way to blend in with the other nuns to evade capture, but also as a form of mockery of their faith. Now, let's talk about how fictional Valak differs from mythological Valak. First off, appearance. In demonology, Valak typically appears as a childlike figure on a two-headed dragon. But in the movies, it's a haunting nun. Well, to be more specific, it's a male demon that has possessed a nun. And, as has already been pointed out, The director's choice of a nun was for the demon to directly affect the main character's faith. If you've seen the movie, you'll agree that it works to scare people in a way that a child riding a two-headed dragon might not have. Also, a young boy riding a two-headed dragon would not be particularly subtle. Everybody would know instantly that something was off. The abilities of the different Valaks are also quite different. Both versions are powerful for sure, but their focus is different enough to be significant. The mythological Valak is more into helping people to find treasure in snakes, and there is no mention of it tormenting people. Instead, it sounds like Valak is more of a helpful demon. After all, it gives true answers of hidden treasures. Hollywood Valak, on the other hand, thrives on destruction and terror. It is cold, sadistic, ruthless, and is always out for blood. The success of the Conjuring series has practically exploded Valak's popularity. This video would probably not exist without that series. Valak has also been featured in a number of other movies, including the 2017 Annabelle, The Creation, and the 2018 film Bloodfest. It is also set to appear in a soon-to-be-released movie called The Crooked Man. Fun fact, YouTube considers Valak too scary for its audience. So, in 2018, the creators of The Nun posted an ad for the movie on YouTube. The ad was an immersive one where something was messing with the user, doing things like shutting the volume off completely. And then all of a sudden, you see Valak as the nun on the screen just screaming its head off. And that's how the ad ended. Well, you won't find that video online because YouTube took it down. Ads containing jump scare violate its guidelines. With all that said, it wouldn't be far-fetched to conclude that the creators of the Conjuring series only borrowed the name Valak. The features are similar enough to the mythological Valak to consider the Hollywood one truly inspired. Other demons that have been featured in movies like Dagon and Pazuzu were more faithfully adapted. So, is Valak real? In a way, yes. Valak's name and a few traits come from historical demonology, but the version you see in The Conjuring is mostly Hollywood's creation. The terrifying nun is far removed from the dragon-riding child described in the Lesser Key of Solomon. What the movies do, however, is reimagine folklore to create a villain that's both memorable and terrifying. And if you've ever caught a glimpse of the nun, you would have to agree that it works. If you're fascinated by Valak, though, it might be worth exploring the original lore, as it offers a glimpse into how past societies understood and feared the supernatural. But when it comes to Hollywood, remember that the goal is to scare and entertain, not to stick to historical facts. Whether real or not, though, Valak's ability to haunt our imaginations is undeniable.